Joining us now, former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Bridget Brink. She resigned from her post last month, citing the administration's policy toward Ukraine. And now she is running for U.S. Congress in Michigan as a Democrat. So we want to talk about the war in Ukraine, but let's start there with your new political ambitions. Tell us why you are running for Congress, Madam Ambassador.
Thanks so much, Mika and Joe, for having me on. It's great to be here. I have to say, I've dedicated my entire life to serving our country, fighting for freedom and protecting democracy under 5 presidents over 28 years, and I was incredibly proud to do this job every single day. But the policies of the Trump administration are not only detrimental to our power and our influence overseas, they're also bad for us back home, including for Michigan families in my home state here in Michigan. And because of that, I am running for, as a Democrat, for Michigan's 7th district, and this is going to be a key battleground state. I think that the stakes are just too high and that we need leaders of principle who are going to step up and go to Washington and do the right thing. And I encourage supporters to join me at BridgetBrink.com.
Madam Ambassador, good morning. We'll ask you a little more about your race in a second. But if we get just the latest on what you see on the situation there in the war with Ukraine, it does feel like the United States, to your point, continues to pull back from the conflict. That recent days there had been a working group within the White House looking to explore means of potentially punishing Russia, turning up the pressure on Moscow. That group has been disbanded. Also, the U.S. Senate, which has a lot of support for a really tough sanctions bill against Russia and secondary sanctions for those who back Russia, have tabled that, putting it on the back burner until not revisiting now until later in the summer. So with that vacuum, what dangers does it pose?
Well, this is exactly why I left my position as U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine. I left a couple months ago because of the pressure that was being put on our Democratic ally in response to Putin's terrible war of aggression in Ukraine and letting Russia off the hook. And I feel that the Trump administration's policy is one of trying to solve the problem by appeasing Russia and its demands to take over Ukraine. But the problem is that Russia and Putin have a much bigger strategy and a much bigger agenda. And it's not only to subjugate Ukraine, but it's to divide Europe, threaten Europe, and also undermine the United States. And so I believe that what we need to do is use muscular diplomacy to try to solve this war and to put pressure on Putin to come to the table. And what we're doing is exactly the opposite.
So, Ambassador Brink, everything you just said was totally accurate, and the world sees it playing out each and every day as Ukrainians die each and every night under attack from Moscow. What do you figure the deal is between President Trump and Vladimir Putin?
Well, I think actually the deal should be between Russia and Ukraine. I think Putin started this war, and it can be finished, but it requires us to put pressure on Putin, and that means more sanctions, additional sanctions. I'd love to see the package that is in Congress right now passed as quickly as possible. I think that gives us more leverage. It gives the Ukrainians more leverage. I also think there needs to be continued military and intelligence assistance given to Ukraine by us, but also importantly by our allies and Ukraine's friends. And we also need to get access to the $300 billion in Russian sovereign assets that's just sitting in Europe and could be used to buy weapons, U.S. weapons, to defend Ukraine. And that could be something that helps Ukraine defend itself also in future. So there is a deal to be had. But the first thing that needs to be solved is we need to support Ukraine and provide guaranteed security for Ukraine. That's what's going to bring 10 million displaced people home, allow Ukraine to restart its economy, and to move forward in a way that could be positive for not just Ukraine, but the entire region.
Back to your political campaign, Madam Ambassador, how much do you think the war in Ukraine and the concept of support for Ukraine will play in your campaign? Do you think voters are engaged on supporting Ukraine?
Well, what I hear back home, and I'm now in Lansing, Michigan, is that people are actually most concerned about, what we call kitchen table issues. So it's basically the economy. It's prices. It's the effect that the reckless tariffs are having on raising prices here, including a 24% increase in baby products, in the cost of baby products for new parents. It's things like how and whether the budget that's currently moving through Congress is going to affect people who need health insurance. Hundreds of thousands of people may lose their health insurance if the current budget goes through as is. And it's also this effect of the DOGE slash and burn technique to make government more efficient. But actually what it's done is just cut services to seniors, to children, and to veterans. And those are the kinds of things that people are worried about. Everyday issues at the kitchen table.
Former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine and candidate for Congress now in Michigan, Bridget Brink. Thank you very much for coming on the show this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.